most. For more now, we welcome our political panel. Laura Fink, Democratic strategist and former advisor to members of Congress, and John Thomas, Republican strategist and managing director of the advisory firm Nestpoint. Wonderful to have you both. Thank you very much. John, I'd like to start with you. You know, we just heard the arguments from two Illinois representatives firmly standing against the National Guard to Chicago. From your perspective and from what you heard, do you share any of the concerns that they laid out? Do you believe they have a good point?
No, I really don't, because they're on the wrong side of this issue. Instead of telling President Trump not to come in and bring them assistance, they should be collaborating with President Trump. And it looks really petty, just like a political game, because we can see what happened in Washington, D.C. after just a month of President Trump's deployment of troops. Violent crime is down 44%. The mayor even admitted carjacking is down over 80%. What city, especially a city like Chicago that's ridden with crime, would not want even a brief reprieve of for violent crime to come down? They're taking the wrong approach, and it's simply because they don't want to be seen cooperating with President Trump. It's a sad state of political affairs.
Well, I do want to get to the messaging on all of this and how it does impact the politics. But first, Laura, what type of pushback would you expect, legally, politically, or otherwise, that you believe the administration may come up against if they do, in fact, move ahead with troop deployment to Chicago?
Well, let me first of all be clear that it is only weak leaders who deploy the military against their own citizens. And that's what we see President Trump doing here. Passe comitatus, that is the legal standard that says that you cannot use the military for civilian law enforcement. A federal judge ruled that the 4,000 National Guard troops that were deployed to L.A. were engaging in illegal activity. And it cost the taxpayers over $100 million. And now we see the same thing going on in Chicago. Also, Trump can send out a graphic and pretend that he is at war on crime. This is a show of force that is more about ego than actual results. And I think we heard the two representatives say, we welcome coordination, which has not happened at all, either with local law enforcement or the statewide and congressional leaders. And not only has that not happened, we also see that the police have said they have things under control, that things are going well, and crime is in fact down. So I think the challenge is that you have President Trump not sending the ATF to combat gun violence, not sending the DEA for any sort of gang or drug trafficking, not sending any of the agencies that are the FBI to control violent crime. He is sending the military, and that really speaks to his need to intimidate and not to actually problem solve. I heard leaders that were willing to sit down and talk. I don't see a president that's receptive to that.
Well, in a recent poll from the AP, a vast majority of Americans, 81%, do believe or see crime as a major problem in large cities. I think the million-dollar question is, how do we address it? And what are the methods? And that's where we run into the weeds and some problems here. But I do want to switch gears, John, and ask you about the president also signing this executive order to rename the Department of Defense to the Department of War. The president says this sends a signal of strength. Do you believe this move accomplishes that goal, and will Congress be on board?
Well, it's a baby step. First of all, it's consistent with what President Trump and the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, have been trying to do by rebranding both to increase recruitment numbers and attract and say, look, we're an elite killing force. We want to have peace through strength. And it's a projection of strength. And look, branding matters. The president understands that. And as far as making it permanent, it does look like, since Republicans have the majority, that the Republicans are going to be sponsoring legislation to make this permanent. I think symbolically, it's consistent with what President Trump ran on, which is really a level of machismo and power and strength that America has to project to the rest of the world.
Well, let's talk about the logistics of this for a second, Laura. Critics of the move say this new moniker, it's unnecessary. It would cost millions to implement a full change. We know Congress did just pass a bill meant to reduce costs. Do you think they will approve an official name change here?
I think we know that Congress will do whatever President Trump wants because they don't stand up to him over anything with Republicans in charge. Here's what I will say, though. This is a huge distraction, and we should rename it the Department of Distraction, because this sort of, nonsense renaming is really all about not talking about the lack of disclosure on Jeffrey Epstein and the files that they continue to suppress, not talking about the historically weak jobs report that showed unemployment at a 4-year high, not talking about the rising cost of living across the country and prices going up because of the Trump tariffs. Trump is underwater on the economy. Citizens are feeling it. And I think he needs to take up attention, which I will grant him he is very good at doing, so as to distract from the realities that Americans are facing every day and that he promised to solve for them on day one.
All right. Well, John, Laura, it is wonderful to have you both. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for weighing in. We have to leave it there.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Well, plus,